For Jason Mohns, the Sun Devils' playoff run in 2024 was extra gratifying. Sure, his tight ends produced an all Big 12 selection and were a key part of the offense's success. But for Mohns, an ASU grad, a son of a former coach under Frank Kush, and a Valley High School football coaching legend, he was part of a group that finally activated the Valley. And with a deep group of tight ends in his room in 2025, it's shaping up to be an exciting follow up season. On this episode, Jason and I discuss reigniting Sun Devil Nation, why spelling maybe doesn't matter as much as it once did, the 2025 tight ends, strengthening local recruiting relationships, and so much more. So let's get to it. Here's my conversation with Jason Mohns. All right, Coach, thanks for coming back on the show. Always enjoy our conversations. So obviously this past season, it was a little bit longer than is typical in Tempe, and for all the good reasons. But, of course, with recruiting, the transfer portal, spring ball just coming up. What have the last couple months been like for you?
Yeah, we've been rocking and rolling. Obviously, spring ball started up, and with that is kind of the recruiting, unofficial visits and things like that. We wrapped up our spring fan fest. We had an official visit weekend that started actually that Friday, and so we had visitors in town that took off Sunday, and then we flew out Sunday night on the road recruiting, and so. Really, it's been the last month all over the country. It's a 4-week window that we had based on our spring ball calendar. We kind of butted up right to the end, and then we just went on a 4-week sprint. So came off the road this past Thursday, and this has been like the first full week that I haven't been traveling. So it's been nice to be back at home, but it was fun to be on the road and talking to players and coaches coming off the season we had. Definitely have a lot of momentum right now in the recruiting side.
So obviously, this profession is quite a grind, very rewarding in so many aspects. For you, what's the most rewarding part of putting in all the hours, all the long days, all the frequent flyer miles that ultimately go into this job?
I mean, there's a lot of rewarding parts to it. I think, number one, you're a competitor, and when you have the season that we had, it feels like the hard work that we've been putting in. It feels like the culture that we've created and the vision that Coach Dillingham had and that we've all poured into. We feel like you can see the fruits of your labor. I think we got there a little bit quicker than we all thought we would to the level that we had last year. But I think that's one part of it, and then I think for me, it's always been about my family and their experiences too. And so some of the opportunities that my kids had, whether it was being inside Mountain America Stadium and being there for some of the big games and seeing them on the field afterwards after the big wins that we had, or I think the one that really stuck out to me is my kids going with us to Georgia for the Peach Bowl, and when we left the facility on the charter bus to go to the airport, the fans lined the parking lot on the way out, and my wife's got a great video of my kids waving to the fans out the window of the bus on the way there. And just that, I just think about that experience for them. That's, not very many kids across the country can say that they've had those same kind of experiences. So just having the success we had, having the season we had, and sharing that with my friends and my family and with the guys on our staff. I mean, I love those guys. We got some great dudes on the staff from the top down, and it was a memorable, magical season, and it makes the grind worth it. When you have those special experiences, it makes all the hard work worthwhile.
So to make it to that level, being a coach at the major college Power Four level, you got to love the game. You got to have a great mind for the game. So what are the things about the sport of football, whether scheme on the field, maybe even off, that you really like to nerd out about?
Oh man, it's funny. It's kind of transition for me. Obviously when I was at Saguaro, I was a play caller and head coach, and I would, it's like scheme and program development and marketing and all the stuff that you do as a head coach. And then for me now, it's like I'm kind of like a tight end technique nerd, and trying to learn as much as I can on coaching the position. And it's different. I always coach quarterbacks, and so to step into coaching this position, trying to become the best tight ends coach I can be, and spending time meeting with coaches and watching film and trying to get my hands on clinic tape and NFL tape, and I think that's been the most fun thing for me, is just really trying to dive into being the best tight ends coach I can be. And I really felt like, from year one to year two, just my comfort level, being able to see things in real time and make adjustments in real time, and give my guys just little tips and little techniques that they can apply that helps them, take the next step. And so that's been really fun for me. I've really enjoyed that. It's a lot of times you go from being a position coach to then coordinator, then head coach, and I kind of have gone the opposite way, and it's been fun to do that, because I understand how I fit into the big picture, because I've been a coordinator, I've been a head coach, so I think I have a better understanding of my role as a position coach. So I've really enjoyed it. I've honestly, I love coaching the tight ends. I think it's the type of kids that I get to recruit and get to coach. Or they're unselfish. They're team first guys. The tight end position is really a team first position, because you're asked to do everything. And outside of the quarterback, I don't think there's anybody on the offense that has to know more of the offense and be involved in every facet of the offense, besides the tight end. So I've really enjoyed it. And yeah, I'm nerded out. I was going back and watching game film from last year, and just trying to study a little bit more from, like, you know down and distance and situational football, and that way I can help Coach Arroyo a little bit more this next season. Trying to really get a feel for how his brain works, and the things he's seeing and the things that he likes to attack. And so I'm kind of just diving back into that now. And I watched 3 or 4 games yesterday, and I was pulling up a couple games actually after I got off this afternoon. So looking forward to the next couple months of just being able to study and learn and grow and get better.
Of course, Kenny Dillingham comes in here as the youngest head coach in the country, still one of the youngest across the nation. Uh, from year one to year two, and having the success and all the progress you as a staff were able to make, how have you seen Kenny Dillingham kind of evolve and grow into the role as a leader of a program?
Yeah, no, I honestly, I had an exit interview with him, and he's so humble, and he asks things, hey, where can I get better and what can I do? And I just told him, like, hey, listen, usually a employee doesn't tell their boss they're proud of them, but just for me knowing him for as long as I have, and last year was his first year at any level being a head coach, and so to see the growth he's made in from year one to year two, now going into year three. I'm not surprised, because the dude is so smart, and he's so calculated, and he's so willing to look in the mirror and point out his mistakes and work to fix them. So he's just done a tremendous job, and he's got no ego. I think that's one of the things that allows him to be so successful in modern college football, is that he doesn't have 10 or 15 or 20 years of, this is how I always did it and this is how I'm going to do it. He's kind of learning on the fly as college football evolves. And when you pair that with how he's wired and how smart he is, I think it's why he made such a tremendous leap from year one to year two. And he's done a great job, and I have the utmost faith and respect in him, for how he's going to continue to evolve. He's only going to get better and better, because he's nonstop. He's always trying to find ways to get better. He's always trying to find ways to create an advantage in every facet of his role as a head coach. So been really fun to work with and learn from him and see how his mind works, and his drive is second to none. I mean, that dude, he eats, sleeps, breathes Sun Devil football, and trying to find ways to help us continue to get better.
So he's obviously a very quotable guy. What's your favorite Dillyism?
My favorite Dillyism. Oh man, it was funny, because it was kind of one that we shared collectively as a group. I think it was kind of like Dilly and Sean Iguano and myself, as we started kind of having success last year. We'd kind of be out on the practice field while the kids were warming up, and the running joke was just, man, if we could just find a way to get this one. It was like, and then we win that game, and then the next week was like, all right, we got that one, but if we could just find a way to get this one. So that's one of my favorite ones, was just kind of find a way. The find a way to get this one was great. And then anybody that walks by him in the hallway, it's, at first it was kind of like it would catch you off guard, and now it's just, you expect it. And I think half of us say it to him first anyway. Is you say, hey, what's up, how you doing? It's always life. You walk by Coach in the hallway, what's up, life? and it's it's obviously our acronym for our program. The little things: intensity, family, education, response, success. That's our lifers. And so it was just funny at first. You'd see him life, and you're kind of like, man, just say what's up, man. Just be a regular dude. But it makes sense now. It's like he's always it's there's always a reason. There's a method to his madness, and he's kind of breathed that culture into our program and infused it. Whether you were ready for it or not, he was bringing it. So. But there's a million of them. You can go on and on. He's definitely quirky. I think the last thing I'll share is like the thing that drove me nuts is I was raised. My mom was like kind of English major and big into spelling, and spelling was always so important, and spelling things properly. And the way Kenny's brain works is like if you could spell something wrong to make it make sense. For the players, then the spelling doesn't matter. And so when we were installing our offense and naming things, and we were spelling things, the wrong way on purpose because it coincided with the route concept, and it was so hard for me. And now it's like I forgot how to spell things right because I'm so ingrained into his system. So I blame him for any future spelling mistakes I have because we don't take pride in spelling things right. We take pride in doing things right, but definitely not spelling them right.
Kind of on a similar note, is there a go-to Monsism that you found yourself, in this role, using with your guys?
Oh man, it's probably we talk about violent details all the time, and I think that's the one thing I try to hammer in my kids. We with the tight ends is just we talk about violent details with hands, eyes, and feet, and that's something that I stress and try to coach the heck out of our details and those three areas. So yeah, they'd probably tell you that. They'd probably tell you violent details if you asked them. I'm sure there's some other stuff that's annoying to them that I don't understand yet, but no, it's hey, I just try to show up and be detailed and have my guys disciplined and ready to play and coach the heck out of the fundamentals and the details. So that's probably what they would tell you.
Of course, over the last few years with the program, in year one, getting the kind of the culture, the expectations, and that foundation laid, and then the success of year two, now heading into year three. How have you seen this team with so many returning faces, of course, kind of handle the success and how the program culture has evolved heading into 2025?
Yeah, I mean, I know that's a big, point of emphasis for Coach Dillingham is just talking about it's a different type of adversity. It's still adversity when everybody thinks you're just going to show up and roll the balls out and win. It's the way people get lackadaisical and they get complacent. And so I think facing that challenge, obviously that's the hardest thing. I think again I always come back to my experience at Saguaro, and obviously you talk to Sean and Charlie, guys that not just won but were able to sustain success. And I think everybody will tell you it's a lot harder to sustain success than it is to win. And I think that's the big thing, though, is I think we understand that it's obviously been a huge point of emphasis in winter and spring, and obviously will continue to be as we get into these summer PRPs and going into fall camp. So it's just it's I think understanding that nothing you did before carries any weight going forward. All it does is it raises expectations of people on the outside, and it puts a bigger bullseye on your back. And so the only thing that we can control is showing up every day and fighting to get better. And like Coach Dillingham says, being the best versions of ourselves and then repeat. And that's what we're trying to do right now is just show up, uh, push ourselves. We need to be better than we were last year. If we think who we were last year is good enough this year, then it's going to be a disappointment. And so, collectively as a group, and I think as individuals, every one of us, coaches, players, everybody in our program needs to show up every day with the mindset that we've got to be better. If all we are is the same as we were last year, then we're going to get passed by somebody else that was that's hungry like we were last year.
So you're a guy that certainly knows what a championship caliber football team looks like, the ingredients that go into a team that can do some special things. So looking back at 2024, when did you know that that group of Sun Devils had a championship run in them?
Man, it was. I remember we had a team meal. I'm trying to think. I think it was before like the UCF game, and our guys were at the table, and I knew you could feel it because we were growing together, and there were some glimpses into like we're better. Like we knew we were going to be better going all the way back to spring and then fall camp in particular because our guys practiced so hard all through fall camp. There was never any letdown. There wasn't a bad day. There wasn't a day they didn't want to be out there, and you could feel the brotherhood starting to come together. So we knew we were going to be better. But I think when we really started feeling like, man, this team has a chance and believes in itself. I remember we were sitting at the table before a pregame meal, and our guys were like scoreboard watching and talking about games and talking about scenarios, and and I'm like, you guys think we can make a run? And they're like, oh yeah, coach, and they were like, obviously they had talked about it as a team. It wasn't like to them, it wasn't like crazy, shot in the dark. It was like they, as a collective group, had been talking about, hey, we need to handle business here. If we get a little bit help here, you can kind of see things starting to fall into place. And I was like, dang, these guys, like, they're trying to win a conference championship. They're not just trying to make a bowl game. They're trying to win a conference championship, and that was pretty cool. It was a cool feeling, and it just kept stacking. We just kept stacking good days. There was no expectations. I always go back to, like, if we could just find a way to get this one. I mean, that was the mentality. We weren't thinking Big 12 championship. We were just trying to get one at a time. And that's why I'll always remember fondly just talking about, if we could just get this one, because that was our mindset. That's how we approached every day and every game, was like, let's just be better today and let's just find a way to get this one. And then we'll figure it out from there, and not get ahead of ourselves. I think that kept us, even when we had a couple games, obviously the Cincinnati game, and the Texas Tech game. You had some games that you didn't play your best, but it was never like, oh, well, now we can't accomplish our goal, because our goal was never a conference championship. It was just to be better every day. And I think that kept us on track. It kept us focused. And yeah, it was really fun to watch, and really fun to be a part of. And I think the camaraderie and the brotherhood that evolved and developed throughout the course of the season, that was our secret sauce. Obviously Scat was unbelievable, and our defense was lights out, and Sam became a Heisman caliber quarterback. And there's so many, like, individual aspects, but to me, our secret sauce was our brotherhood, and our camaraderie and the relationships, and how much our guys cared about each other and how hard they played for each other. And that was cool to see that evolve and transform throughout the course of the season.
As a local guy and someone, of course, with a tremendous family ties to ASU, what was it like seeing Kenny's vision of activating the Valley really come to life, and what this program was able to do, and interjecting so much energy into to the Valley? You mentioned just with the fans showing up to greet the buses, and everything, and just so much buzz. How gratifying was it for you as a local guy to see that reaction?
Yeah, it's unbelievable to be a part of that. Being a local guy and being somebody that's been around here for a long time, to obviously to come in and have a bunch of homegrown guys on the staff, have a head coach who's the eighth member of his family, I think, to graduate from ASU, and to see the Valley get behind us, to see the Sun Devil flags flying, and you used to be able to go out and not see an ASU T-shirt or a hat or anything like that, and now you can't go anywhere. And it was really cool to be a part of that, to see the Valley get reinvigorated, because this is Sun Devil country. It's been for a long time. It used to be the main ticket in town. When my dad was here with Coach Cush, there wasn't the Cardinals, there wasn't the Diamondbacks, there wasn't anything else. It was the Suns and the Sun Devils, and they dominated the Valley sports scene. And so there's a lot of deep seated Sun Devil pride in this community, and it was fun to see us give them something to be excited about. I think that was a big thing. I think that the Valley was hungry to be excited for the Sun Devils. So yeah, I felt honored to be a part of that, and now hungry to fight to sustain it, because man, the Valley was booming with maroon and gold during that run, and we want to get back to that.
Of course, going through the experience of winning a Big 12 championship, making a run to the Peach Bowl. How do you feel that you evolved as a coach, and are better coach in 2025 than 2024, having gone through the experiences and the success that you and the program had last year?
Yeah, I mean, I think, like anything, you get the experience being in big moments, playing in key situations, pressure games, and things like that, and you just understand that all we have to do is the same thing that got us there. And coaching in those games, allows you to just kind of hone in on doing your job. And I think for me, the biggest transition, the thing that I've tried to improve at the most, is kind of going from having the view as a coordinator, where you're kind of trying to see everything, and you're to now trying to hone in and really focus on my guys and my guys' responsibilities. I think that's probably in year one. I still was trying to see things as a coordinator, as a play caller, and kind of watching everything. And I think in year two, I did a much better job of kind of having that laser focus on my position. And their technique and their fits and the adjustments we needed to make. And so, and then you do that in high pressure situations, and to be able to think and adjust and do those things in big games and big moments. That experience only helps you. So, I feel like I've grown tremendously as a coach in a short period of time. Obviously, getting a chance to get a couple extra games last year and big time games against great opponents can only make you better across the board with our players and coaches. So I'm appreciative of those opportunities, and I can't wait to get some more of them.
Off the field, how do you feel that you've evolved as in the recruiting aspect? Obviously, some very talented guys that you've been able to bring into Tempe, and of course, some of the guys in the future as well that are looking good as well. So, how do you feel that on the recruiting trail that you've grown over these past couple of years?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something I was really excited about. I tell people I kind of felt like I got a doctorate in recruiting, just sitting on the other side of the table with all the schools that came through to recruit players over the years at Saguaro. I got to sit in on a lot of different recruiting meetings. I got to hear every kind of pitch from big time head coaches to coordinators to position coaches. I got to get the breakdown from my players after the coaches left, what they liked, what they didn't like, what resonated, what didn't. So I felt like the recruiting side of this job was something I was actually really excited about, and something that Coach Dillingham said, this is a talent acquisition business. He said that in one of our very first meetings. It's like anybody can coach. I could teach my wife. He said he could teach his wife how to coach, and if he gave him 30 days, she'd be an adequate coach, on our staff. And so it's not about the X's and O's as much as it is about building relationships, connecting with players, getting players to buy in to our program and to our culture. And I think that's something that resonated with me. I saw it as a challenge, and it's like I think any good salesman finds a way to make their job like a competition. And I view recruiting like a competition. I want to find the best players, whether they're the highest rated players or they're a guy that's under the radar that I've evaluated that I feel like his skill set is what we're doing. It's something that I've kind of tried to take a lot of pride in, and I enjoy it. I enjoy going out. I enjoy talking to high school coaches. I think my experience has helped me with that. Being able to sit down in front of a high school coach and talk to them about my experiences doing the same thing that they're doing. I feel like it's opened up an avenue to get real honest feedback and information about the recruits, not only at their school but in the area from other schools. And I think then it's helped me with my relationships with the high school recruits that I'm talking to, because I understand, I have a different perspective of where those guys are, what's going through their head, whether they're an elite recruit, that's getting hounded by everybody, or they're an under the radar guy that's, just hoping and praying for their first opportunity. I think I have a perspective of that, and it's allowed me to connect and relate to those guys. And so I love it. I enjoy it. I don't necessarily love being away from my family for a month, but the actual job itself and getting out and seeing new places and seeing high school football across the country and talking to coaches and players, like I really enjoy that part. And I want to be an asset to our program from a recruiting standpoint, and not just recruiting tight ends. I think that's the biggest thing for me going forward is like I want to start adding an element of bringing talent in for other positions too on our team, and making it a challenge to myself to help guys on our staff in my areas more so outside of my position group.
So, of course, local recruiting has long been a focus, throughout many staffs, and of course, as the talent level here in the valley and across the state increases, of course, with yourself, Kenny, Sean Aguano, as well. How do you feel that the relationships on a local recruiting front have been progressing, especially coming off the momentum of last year?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think one of the things that really stood out to me is we hosted an Arizona coaches clinic, during spring ball, and it's a testament to Coach Regal. Coach Regal's really kind of been our boots on the ground. Like he's really only an Arizona guy, where all of us are out kind of going different places. Charlie's really been ingrained here, and we sold out our Arizona coaches clinic. We didn't have any seats left available. We had to shut it down, and we had a great clinic. A lot of the heavy hitters, the guys that have been very successful for a long time, guys that are influential at big time programs, were all here. And it was really cool to see that. I think we have great relationships throughout the valley. And I think, obviously having a year like we had this year is going to make us more attractive to the local kids. I think they went through a period where, if you were an elite player, you almost felt like you needed to go somewhere else to, validate who you were. And I think, we keep having years like we had last year. The young local talent's going to understand that, you can accomplish everything you want to accomplish in college football an elite level, and you can do it in front of your friends and your family. And so I think if we can continue to sustain that success, I think you'll continue to see, the level of talent that we'll be able to keep home will only continue to rise. So, but at the end of the day, too, and I say this as lovingly as possible, we've created a national brand, and we're having success all over the country. And so, we want to keep the very best players in Arizona at home. But we've also had a lot of success going and getting guys, all over the country. And so that's what you want. You want to create a hot ticket, and you want to create a type of a program where the local kids know, if I kind of drag my feet, there's going to be somebody else somewhere else that wants this spot. And so I think just creating that urgency with the local kids to understand, like, hey, we're playing big time football, and there's really, really talented players all over the country that are lining up for these opportunities. And obviously we want our Arizona kids to get the first crack at them. And we're going to try to get on them early. But yeah, I think that's it. Anytime you're running a good program, you should be really competitive for elite talent across the country. And you should have the local kids growing up, begging to be Sun Devils, and growing up wanting to be Sun Devils because they've grown up going to big games and being in Mountain America Stadium for big moments. Like you look at the BYU game and the Utah game, and you think about 10, 11, 12, 13-year-old kids that were there. Those kids are going to grow up wanting to be Sun Devils, guys wearing scat jerseys, and Sam Levitt jerseys, and lining up like after our fan fest, all the young kids that were lined up to get autographs. Those are kids that are growing up excited about Sun Devil football, and we have to continue to keep them excited. And I think that will pay dividends down the road.
All right, so switching gears to this 2025 group of tight ends, and first off, the linebackers have a pretty cool nickname collectively as the Werewolves. Do the tight ends have a little something brewing in terms of a moniker?
I mean, I don't know. We don't call ourselves anything like that. I mean, we've kind of been we've done the Ric Flair, tight ends on set, and then we get a little Ric Flair woo afterwards. So that's kind of been our thing for a while. We're good with that, but no, I think for us, it's just building an identity of toughness, mental, physical, and emotional toughness. And I'm really proud of our group and what we've done. And I think we don't have a like a superhero or a supernatural creature or anything that we pattern ourselves after. But I think with our play on the field, we've tried to be beast like at times. So.
So you're looking at spring practice. What were some of the key objectives that you had for your tight end groups, or your tight end group over the course of those 15 practices? And how do you feel the group kind of overall managed those expectations and things you wanted to accomplish?
Yeah, I think it was a great spring for us. Obviously getting Khamari Anderson in from the portal, and then obviously AJ Ia coming in early. I think those two guys really getting them some experience, and getting them a lot of reps. Obviously Chamon coming back off an all conference, junior year. For him, it was like, hey, we know what you're capable of. We want to keep you healthy. We want to limit the full contact to the ground stuff and let you get your body right. And that allowed us, I think, to really take a look at some of those other guys. So it was really, I think it was a great spring. I think the mix of returning veterans that we had, and it's hard to say veterans because, Chamon didn't get here until, summertime last year. And Harp, last year was his first year, but to have for me, to have a couple guys that played a lot of snaps back for a second year was really big. And to have their leadership, and their guidance for guys like Khamari and guys like AJ, I think allowed us to have a very competitive spring. I think guys were pushing each other. I thought we balanced the reps pretty well between Chamon, Harp, and Khamari. I thought that the reps were split pretty evenly, and AJ got a ton of reps for an early enrollee freshman. I thought Colson Aarons did a great job, kind of as that next guy up, and he got a lot of valuable reps. So high level competition. I feel like our guys understand the system at a high level. I think they understand the technique that they need to utilize to perform at a high level. I think we got on the same page as far as my expectations and how we play and how I coach and how we communicate. So I think the bond in our room is really strong. I think our guys get along with each other. I really like the group that we have. They compete. We've got some kids like, that show up, like Harp shows up every day and competes his tail off. And Khamari's come in with such a great presence on and off the field. Super competitive, super smart, really hardworking. And obviously Chamon with his physicality, and there's certain elements that everyone brings. I mean, even AJ with some of the plays that he makes, being a freakish athlete, with his size and speed at his young age. And I think they all do certain things that makes the guys around them better, and pushes each other, and they do it in such a positive way. There's no animosity. And I've been really proud of that group. I really am happy with our group, and I'm excited to get into summer and get back into fall camp, and continue to ramp it up and letting those guys compete. And I think a testament to the spring we had is when you look and the percentages of 12 personnel and even some 13 personnel that we played during spring, is a testament to the caliber of tight ends we have in our room right now.
That's perfectly into my next question. I was with that added depth, the skill, the talent, the experience that you have. Are we going to see some more of that? Multiple tight end sets. 12, 13, maybe even 14 personnel.
Yeah, I sure hope so. I don't get to be the guy that makes that decision, but I do know, from talking with Coach Arroyo and Coach Dillingham, that we're going to put our best players on the field, and that we feel really strongly about the guys that we have in our tight end room right now. That we're confident in our ability to play multiple tight end groupings, and I think Coach Arroyo showed you during spring that's something that he's willing to do, and he's toyed around with doing. So that's it. That's my job is to recruit and develop and prepare as many guys as I can to help our team, and then it's up to Coach Arroyo and Coach Dillingham to decide how we want to utilize those guys. But I feel strongly that you'll see multiple tight ends on the field throughout the year. I think guys have earned it, and I think it's tough to defend. I know from talking to Coach Brian Ward, during spring ball, he was like, man, when you guys have two tight ends on the field, that's a nightmare. And I think that's something that we paid attention to, just looking at tracking NFL teams. And when you look at like the top 10 offenses in the NFL, I think 8 of the 10 were in 12 personnel, over 30% of the time. So it is something that's hard to defend, and I think we've got the right guys and the right mix of skill sets in our room to get into some different multiple tight end groupings, and give teams problems.
All right, so I want to get to your thoughts on the guys in your room. Starting off with the guy who's coming off some Big 12 honors, all Big 12 honors last season. Chamon Metayer, what have you seen from him in terms of what you liked last year and how he can make some strides and be even better in 2025?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, obviously having Chamon back is huge for our team. He's such a physical presence, and I think that's the big thing with him. And we talk about it all the time. The way he impacts the game without the ball in his hands is what makes it a great tight end. And he's a striker at the first level. He plays with great pad level. He's explosive and twitchy at the line of scrimmage. He can block defensive ends one on one. He can move. He plays great in space. He's got great balance, and so he does some really good things. He was really solid for us in protection. He was really solid for us in the run game. Obviously, I think he had 5 touchdown catches, and was a huge red zone threat for us and a contributor in the passing game. So, excited to have him back. His physical presence, his leadership, and I think he can only continue to develop and grow as a weapon for us. And I think the thing that I'm the most proud of him for is his understanding that what's going to allow him to play at the next level. It's not being a 1,000-yard receiver or anything like that. It's his physical presence, and his work as a complete tight end, as a guy that can do everything well, and is physical, and is willing. And I think you look at him, the way he blocks in space on the perimeter, the way he picks up, protections, the way he fits runs, the way he, is a second puller on counter, a lot of those things. And then you see him make plays with the ball in his hands, and, go make contested catches and do some of those things. I think that's the biggest thing for him, is just showing that he's committed to being a complete tight end. And that's why I was so excited for him to get all conference accolades last year, because I don't think that was a statistical award. I think that was an award that people that really watched us play and saw his impact in the game when he didn't have the ball, they recognized that, and they rewarded him for it.
And Cameron Harpole is a guy that maybe didn't have a huge 2024 in terms of like the stat sheet, but was a key contributor in so many different ways. And even throughout spring, it looked like this year he's becoming more of a threat as a pass catcher. Where have you seen Harp grow into 2025?
Yeah, I really, really love Harp, as far as what he brings to the table for our room. He's kind of like your utility guy. He's your middle infielder that can play every position, and he does everything really well. He's super smart. He works his tail off. He's I have to give it to him now. He's the fastest tight end in our room. He's consistently run the fastest numbers. He's been over 20-mile-an-hour guy consistently, which I think surprises people. Um, he really, as a skill set, is more of a pass catcher than he is a blocker. I think the way we utilized him last year in 12 personnel, we probably utilized him more as a blocker, just as we kind of got to know our guys and know who we had, and kind of set Chamon loose a little bit. But I think Harp can bring a lot to the table this year. Really, truly, as a complete tight end, he's physical. He's technically very sound. He's a great route runner. He's got really natural ball skills. He catches the ball really well. So I think he's going to have an expanded role this year. He's a guy, like Coach Dillingham says all the time. If you have smart guys that are tough, that do everything right, you can play and you can win with those guys. And he checks all those boxes. He's a smart kid that's tough, that does everything right. He's got ability, and he brings a great presence to our room.
And Jaden Fortier, of course, suffered the unfortunate injury a while back. How do you see him kind of, progressing back from that injury now that he looks healthy? And what kind of role do you think he can carve out?
Yeah, I think for him it's just so important to have a full off season, have this full summer with Coach Joe to really get in the weight room, to get bigger, to get stronger. The kid can run. He's got great ball skills. He catches, but for us to really to be a tight end in our system and Coach Arroyo's system, you got to be able to put your face on people, and you got to be able to cut off the C gap. And you got to do some things like that. So I think that's really the now that he's healthy, that this summer is going to be so important for him to just get bigger and stronger. And because we know he's got the ability. He's got a tremendous amount of ability. He's a great kid. He's smart. So I'm excited for him to really get these next couple months with Coach Joe, and really just dive into that, and come into fall camp ready to go, ready to compete.
And a couple of the newcomers that really I thought, as you mentioned earlier, had really strong springs. Khamari Anderson just seems to bring a different element over from the SEC to this Sun Devil offense with his athleticism, speed. There's a number of times throughout spring it looked like he and Sam really connected for some long touchdowns. What jumps out to you about Khamari, and how dangerous can he be in this offense?
Yeah, I mean, I think Khamari was a tremendous get for us. Everybody that I talked to that was connected with him, from high school coaches to even to guys currently, that coached him there at Kentucky. Um, Everybody had great things to say about him, not only as a player but as a person. And he's lived up to that and more. And he's just the kid's like the consummate professional. He works. He's got great energy, super smart. He's a great human being. He's the kind of kid you want on your roster. He's a proverbial, like, this is the guy that you'd let your daughter date, type kid. He just does. He's a good kid from a good family. He's humble. He works his tail off. He's dynamic now. He's a 20+ mile an hour guy on the catapult. He can run. He's got a good long big frame. He's physical. He's willing to put his face on people, and he's willing to strike. He's super coachable, and he's an explosive big play threat in the passing game. He catches the ball well. He really runs well. I think you saw some times in spring where he caught big explosive plays and ran away from defensive backs, and it's hard to do at 245 pounds. So we're really, really excited about Khamari, his future. I think his willingness to work, his willingness to follow guys that are leaders, but also challenge and compete with those guys, and he does it in such a good way. He's going to be a big time weapon for us for years to come.
And a guy who certainly has Sun Devil fans buzzing with excitement with his potential. HAE certainly doesn't look like a freshman, but really put together. It looked like a strong spring. What really jumps off the page about AJ to you, and how do you think he can contribute to this team as a freshman?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, it's easy to point out, like, if you see him in person, you're like, holy cow, he doesn't look like a freshman. I think that's the easy thing to say. I think the thing that really stood out to me was how smart he is, and how he learns and retains information. his willingness to work, his willingness as a young guy to come in and put extra time in, because the time that you have to be there versus the time that it takes to really be special is different. And the guys that really want to be special, they've got to invest their own time in. They can't just show up and check the box when they're required to be there. They have to come into the facility, and they got to watch film on their own, and they got to walk through on their own. And that was something that AJ showed he was willing to do. Again, a testament to guys like Harp and Khamari. I think he got a really good example from some of the older guys of what it looks like to work. But AJ came in and he worked his tail off. Obviously the kid's got tremendous ability for his size. He had a top 10-yard split, when we timed him, on our team. So his acceleration, his explosiveness is freakish for his size. He's got great ball skills and great body control. He wasn't asked to do a lot of the stuff in the core, surprisingly, for as big as he is. He was really utilized more as a receiver. And so, he's got some work to do. Just getting comfortable with we talk about, again, violent details with hands, eyes, and feet. I spent a ton of time on him, on that stuff with him this spring. But he loves being coached. He doesn't take anything personal. You can challenge him. You can hold him to a high standard. He never felt sorry for himself. And he's got a tremendously bright future, and he's got some great leaders ahead of him that are showing him the way, that the game is played, and how you work. And so, that combination of his willingness to work and learn, and his willingness to follow guys, and the leadership that we have in the room, I think is a good recipe for AJ to be a really darn good player for us, and a guy that, at the end of the day, we're going to put our best guys on the field. And if he continues to show us that he brings a special element to our offense, then he's going to get reps. And he got a lot of quality reps with the 1s and 2s this spring. He's going to get more opportunities in the fall. And really, I think for him, it's just, he's going to show us what he's capable of handling when it comes to, reps and opportunities.
This fall with the sold out Mountain America Stadium, what do you want those Sun Devil fans to see from your group of tight ends?
Same thing. It's a physical presence, and that's always we're going to hang our hat on physicality, and playing to the whistle, striking and straining and finishing. We call it triggering, chasing the ball. The ball is going to find us, and we're going to have opportunities to make plays. But snap to snap, I want our tight ends to play with an edge, to be physical, to finish. And I think that's the identity of our team. We're a team we're gonna fight you. We're gonna be physical. We're gonna play hard. For 4 quarters, and I think that's the identity of our tight end room, is find ways to impact the game without the ball in our hands, and then when we do get an opportunity to make a play, then go to work.
I'd like to thank Jason for taking the time to talk with me for this episode. Make sure you are subscribed to Speak of the Devils on the podcast platform of your choice for more great sit-down series episodes all off season long. And be sure to follow me on all things social media at bdenny29.